Okay, hi everyone, this is Susanna with a special session of Lante's Weekly Wisdom, and it's for the 26th of June. So, as you know, if you've read my comments on Facebook, today's special session, rather, the subject of today's special session came to me at some point this afternoon, either at 3 or 4 o'clock, and I thought, yes, I got it. And I've gone completely blank now, but it was all about this, something that an astrologer friend of mine wrote. And she said, just because it's familiar doesn't make it right for us. And it absolutely doesn't. And it sent me off on a sort of a bit of a journey through what I've been writing in the past month, which is the ebook, What Sort of Inner Host Are You? Because that's where I show you how archetypes can not only show you where your wound is, but also give you the key to healing that wound. That's why I adore archetypes so much. So today's session is going to be a bit from Sherry and stuff about the Cancer new moon, which happened 3 days ago on June the 23rd, and a bit from me based on the work I've been doing to write this ebook. So here we go. All right, well, as I said, Cancer new moon, which is the sun moving into Cancer, happened on June the 21st or the 23rd, sorry, not the new moon, but the sun moved into Cancer on June the 21st or 20th, depending on where you are in the world, which hemisphere you're in. Here in Europe, it was the 21st. I don't know where it was anywhere else. And the sun in Cancer is all about the archetypes sign of the mother. And the mother is all about nurturing. So the sun in Cancer with the summer solstice is calling us to, or suggesting perhaps, that we might like to turn our attention this coming month to all things that are related to the mother. So let's take a look at what that is. Cancer is the archetype of the mother. Why? Because it represents family, roots, tradition, security, nurturing, and the past. Okay, the moon, which is the sign that rules Cancer, actually my moon is in Cancer, is habitual and instinctive, because it's the moon that records our earliest memories, or as far back as we can remember, sometimes into the womb, sometimes back further into past lives. And it actually helps us embed those emotional memories into our subconscious. So what we've got at the moment is a shift from the sign of Gemini, which is very curious, very talkative, very social, information oriented, to the more watery sign of Cancer and our emotions. So are you prepared for an emotional astrological month? Because that's what it may shape up to be. And it may shape up to be an unexpectedly emotion, or be emotional in ways we hadn't expected this coming 28 days or however long the sign of Cancer is. So the theme is remembering what's familiar to us from our very early life. And this is where Sherry's statement, familiarity breeds contempt, comes in, because what's comfortable isn't always best for us. And what's comfortable is comfortable precisely because we are so used to it. Why? Because it's come from our past. And anything that comes from our past, by the time we reach our 20s, is well and truly controlled by our automatic, our subconscious mind. Okay, It doesn't get into our conscious mind for elaboration until we typically get so fed up with the result of that it brings, that we say, okay, I need to do something about this, and we start choosing thoughts that are more aligned with who we want to be, who we know ourselves to really be underneath all of our wounds. And that conscious choice, that conscious thought, opens the reticular activating system up to saying, oh, well, she's been thinking about this a lot lately, so we'll give it to her, we'll let it past our automatic control and our subconscious control and let it into the conscious mind, because she's obviously showing that she wants to work on it, okay? So, what is familiar? Well, one thing that might be familiar is our role model for parenting. What sort of parents were our parents like? What model did they give us or teach us? Was it nurturing and caring, or was it anything but caring, sensitive and respectful? In fact, it might have been cruel or abusive or angry or violent or physically or verbally or emotionally abusive. We may have stored, whatever it was, we will have stored that model of parenting in our body cells, not just in our brains, memories, but in the cells of our bodies. And that's why that model, no matter how unhealthy or healthy it is very familiar. And that's why we revert to it automatically. Now, we can replay, obviously, these sorts of emotional patterns and role and models over and over again in our adult lives, simply because we mistake what's familiar with what's good for us, or with what we've become used to thinking on what's good for us. So it's very easy to see how recreating patterns in our relationships moving forward, in our job, in our general levels of satisfaction, and in our health, seems so almost okay to us, at least for a while, because we are so familiar with them. We are simply repeating the patterns and the models for behaviour and for our lives that we are most familiar with, because we learnt them when we were children, and we learnt them without even realising that we were absorbing them and watching them and storing them away in our brains for future reference. So all of that, how can I put it? Storing these patterns and then finding ourselves pulling them out and using them again and again and again, even when we know they aren't particularly helpful, can lead us to second guess or even entirely ignore our instincts, our sense of knowing, our hunches, and also our life experience and our strengths. So what's pretty fascinating about this from Sherry's astrological point of view is that the Cancer new moon is providing us with an opportunity for the self-discovery and enlightenment about our buried emotions, that we really need, and where, quite frankly, logic doesn't get much of a look in. It's all about emotion, isn't it? And that's no bad thing if we observe those emotions with our rational brain and say, is this aligned with something that's going to help me achieve my goals, or is it going to get me sabotaging them? Okay, so in itself, it's not a bad thing. It's how we respond to those emotions that can either support us or sabotage us. So when we get these opportunities for self-discovery and enlightenment about these buried emotions, it brings us more information about them and access to our subconscious mind, which is very non-logical and very non-linear. And they become the way we try to find ourselves or create for ourselves the kind of security necessary to ensure our survival when we were children, and to ensure to try to get, however mistakenly, some form of satisfaction as adults in our adult lives. So you can see that this is very distorted behavior. So this moon is going to be very helpful for us to tune in to our emotions in a very neutral, non-judgmental way. And then ask ourselves very calmly, is this helping me, or is it just increasing my self-sabotage, or my bullies self-sabotaging of me? Okay. Plus, this Cancer new moon presents us with opportunities, if you like, to plant the seeds that are going to replace those old familiar emotions that come from the judgments and criticisms of the adults around us when we were children, long ago for some of us, and embedded them in the cells of our body, and replace them with compassion for ourselves. Now, doing so moves us away from this saying of familiarity breeds contempt, which brings us to us saying things like stupid me, it's very polite, or why on earth did I do this, or oh, for God's sake, how long is it going to take me to learn that? That sort of judgmental impatience and self-sabotage that does us no good at all. It's just ammunition for our inner bullies and our boundaries thief and our anger sniper. And it moves us away from that mindset towards a more forgiving and an unconditionally loving one, if, of course, we allow it. So as part of this, we may start finding that this month we're focusing, a lot of childhood memories are coming up for us. Perhaps because they're childhood memories that where we need to untangle some of our emotional confusion about what feels good simply because it's familiar, and what feels good because it makes the person we are now, or the person we are working towards, truly happy. And it is, of course, aligned with our vision to make a difference in the world. So this is the energy of one of the 4 preparation archetypes known as the caregiver. Now, what are the preparation archetypes? Well, in archetypal psychology, there are actually 4 preparation archetypes. And they work in pairs. So the first pair is that of the innocent, who has an unshakable belief in paradise, but that can lead to not being very realistic. And the innocent, who has enormous strengths in realism and being realistic, but whose woundedness shows in their thinking that they are all alone, and if they want to get anything done, they have to do it themselves, not because they're perfectionists, but because they cannot trust anyone to help them. So that's the first set of preparation archetypes, and we need to balance that optimism with that realism, that we can find our way back to paradise, and paradise exists and it's beautiful, with the interdependence that the wounded, that the healed rather often develops as their way to heal the wound of I am an orphan, I'm on my own, and I know I can't trust anyone to help me. So those two work together, and we know that we've worked through them when we've brought those opposing demands into balance. So mainly unstinting and unrelenting trust with and optimism and faith in total realism, practicality and pragmatism, which is are fantastic skills to have in balance. The second set of preparation archetypes are And you may be surprised by this. They are the warrior and the caregiver, because the warrior has to learn how to stand up for themselves. The healed warrior is very good at knowing what to fight for, what's worth it and what's not. The healed caregiver is very good at knowing who to help, when it's appropriate to help, and how it's appropriate to help. And both of them, the warrior has to stand up for themselves and to know when and how to do that appropriately. The caregiver needs to nurture themselves and needs to learn how and when to do that wisely and appropriately. So everything we've been talking about, can you see how it really resonates with the preparation archetype of the caregiver that I've been writing about this month? So the caregiver shows empathy and compassion. They show sensitivity, if you like. In her article about the Cancer new moon, one of Sherry's topics were how much sensitivity is too much. So let's move back to astrology and what Sherry has to say. The Cancer reminds us of what the innocent, the wounded innocent in us wants at any cost to avoid and deny, and that is the harshness of life. Okay, so the Cancer new moon reminds us that despite all of the harshness and the harsher realities of life, Cancer is about nurturing, and so cancering sensitivity can be a double-edged sword. That's because there's a very, very, very fine line between being sensitive and compassionate to others and hiding behind a sensitive and compassionate mask or facade while nurturing others as a way to deflect attention from our own vulnerabilities because we don't want them to be exposed. And this is very, very typical behavior of the shadow innocent, one of the other four preparation archetypes, because it's their optimism and trust in the existence of paradise, because they've already been through it or experienced it with unconditionally loving parents. That needs to be balanced with the realism that comes as we become more comfortable with and we are able to accept more the harsher realities of our life, so that we can accept the welcome experiences as much and as willingly as we can experience the unwelcome experiences. That should be the other way around. But for now, back to the caregiver and this new moon, because it reminds us that it's not our job to protect and nurture only others. It would be impossible. We would soon burn out. Even if they are family or those we consider to be so precious to us that they are, if you like, our chosen family. Because the caregiver is more importantly about learning that we need always to care first and foremost for ourselves. We can go on about who, what, where, when, and how our parents succeeded or failed us in the past, either both of them, or our mother, or our father, or our grandparents, or any other member of our family, or any other authority figure that we were given to, who was in charge of us and in charge of our earliest care. But there's a Cancer new moon coming, full moon rather, coming on the 8th or 9th of July, and that's going to bring us short if we don't really understand that Cancer new moon is all about our ability to care for ourselves. And caring for ourselves does not mean and has nothing to do with going endlessly over and over who did what to us that hurt us in the past. It is about acknowledging that we were hurt, and then moving to, but this is my life. It is my responsibility to have the life I want. Therefore, it's down to me. What can I do? Well, the easiest thing I can do is focus on where I want to be. That's why the archetypes are so brilliantly powerful in helping us sidestep our inner bullies and all of our inner saboteurs, because they help us leap over that middle stage that many of us get trapped in, which is simply getting stuck in our wounds and going endlessly over and repeating and explaining endlessly before we answer questions why we're like the way we are because of what was done to us. It serves no purpose whatsoever. So we are called to recognize that no matter, with this new moon, okay, on the 8th or the 9th of June, which is, 2 to 3 days away, that no matter what our early life was like, we're grown up now, and we need to demonstrate the warrior's courage and willingness to fight for ourselves so that we can transform any early emotional pain into newer, better memories. Okay, we can replace those old memories with better ones. It doesn't mean to say that we get rid of them. They're there, but they no longer have any sting. They no longer have any power to hurt us. Again, it is just the past that we lived, and we get to the stage where we go, well, actually, yeah, it was tough. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but actually, having been through it, I am so grateful because it's shown me where it's brought me to where I need to be, and where I need to be is doing the work that I'm doing now. So we feel genuinely grateful to our parents, and which means that we can accept the appalling and possibly unacceptable things they did to us. And that's the time, and that's when it's appropriate to say, but we know they did their best because they too were appallingly wounded, because we're not trying to deny the harsher realities of our childhood, our early years, and the pain that it caused within us, and the tremendous grief it caused us because of the loss of our right to paradise and our innocence. So, going back to our caregiver, contrary to what our inner bully loves to tell our wounded caregiver, caring for ourselves is not the most selfish thing we can do. In fact, it's not selfish at all. It doesn't reduce the energy we have available to nurture others. It doesn't take it away from them. It actually gives us more of the energy we need to help them more and more fully, and definitely more appropriately. Because this new moon is a very timely reminder of what real caregiving is about and what real nurturing is about, because it's about one word: empowering. It's not being. And what does empowering others mean? Well, or helping others mean? It doesn't mean being available to someone who asks for help. As one of my mentoring clients said recently, it's actually about what I call the second stage of parenting. There are several stages of parenting. One is the stage of the caregiver as the unconditionally loving mother or parent. This is where they're loving, very attentive to the child. They notice and develop the child's talents and interests, and they are so devoted to their child that they would die if necessary, so in order that the child can thrive. Think about the parents who have taken their young children with them into the concentration camps, and the soldiers going in to find the bodies of dead mothers crouched or cuddling their child in an effort to save them from dying too, in the vain hope that their child would live, that they would take the bullet and their child would be saved. So that's certainly true for most of our first years, up until the ages of about 8, 9, 10, depending on how we develop. We do need parents who are very loving, who put our needs first, who consciously and willingly develop our strengths, our talents, our interests, so that we can thrive. But once we get beyond that age and we get into our teens, then we hit, if you like, a second. This is very simply put, this division. But for the sake of today, let's say there are 2 stages of parenting. The second stage, as we grow, then our parents' role metamorphoses from this ideal protector and nurturer into coach and mentor. Now, what do? Well, they teach us what we need to know to become more self-sufficient through ensuring that we have, either by teaching us themselves or introducing us and making sure that we have people who can do it if they can't, teach us the necessary skills and understanding of how the world works, how it operates, that are indispensable to our ability to go on to develop a fully realized life that is safe, that is enjoyable, and that meets our needs for community, for love, for acceptance, and for self-realization, for reaching our potential. And it's this second stage of caregiving that's really important, because it is all about the empowerment we need to receive and feel in order to create that fully realized life for ourselves and to help others go on to create it for themselves. That's why wise caregivers, wise in the sense of healed caregivers, are expert community builders, because in using their own nurturing skills to help others feel valued and cared for, they become models for those others to develop self-care for themselves. And we're constantly paying forward then, aren't we, as the American expression says. We are giving the sense of empowerment and feeling valued and cared for that someone helped us create in ourselves, so that others can do the same. And this becomes a self-perpetuating cycle, which is enormously positive. I take a drink of water. So, there's another aspect of this Cancer new moon, which I won't go into now, which is going to help us empower ourselves by strengthening our own sense of self-value. Certainly, as we look at our emotions and we make that separation between what feels good because it's simply familiar and what feels good because it's aligned with who we are or who we know we're capable of being. That certainly helps us empower ourselves and develop our strength, our own sense of self-value. But this is something, again, that we will be working on this month in other ways. So remember that the prize for us this month is to increase the value that we place on our own sense of self-compassion and self-worth, okay? That's our prize. Keep your eye on it, okay? Nobody says not to have fun, but keep in mind that too much fun and imagination and fantasy isn't what you need at this stage, because to have this sense, this increased sense of self-worth, to do the work that this new moon is asking us to do, requires us to balance the caregiver and the orphan, or the innocent and the orphan. That trust that all is well, that we, even if we haven't experienced paradise before, the innocent in us knows that we can create it for ourselves once we have the necessary life skills and emotional skills to do that. It never goes away, just waits for us to develop the sense of self-worth and self-trust that says, hey, I can do it for myself. How do I want to do it? What are the ingredients that I need to use to make it a successful cake, if you like? So keep your eye on the prize. That means coming to it with your emotions, your intuition, and your realism. Because the aim is to balance the fun-loving activities, the emotional realm, and your realism. Okay, so if you realize that if you discover another way in which I will rephrase that. If you discover that you are repeating a particular behavior simply because it's familiar to you, because you're so used to it now, it's so old, and you want to stop that and change it to a more healed behavior of, I want it now to feel comfortable for me, or I want to choose a behavior that feels comfortable to me because it's aligned with who I am or who I know I am capable of being, then the realism comes in by making a plan. What behavior do I need? What can I replace this old sabotaging behavior with new behavior, and make it equally as comfortable and familiar as the old, but this time because it's aligned, because it's really me, because it's a great fit for who I am and where I know I'm going. Okay, so imagination and emotion, the past and the future, idealism, trust, and realism and practicality all need to be balanced and meshed, connected together for this to happen. Okay, so if we manage to do this, bring all of these opposing energies together, and we manage to mesh them, as it were, then amazing things can happen. Because what we'll find ourselves doing is giving ourselves the opportunity to bridge the gap between where we've acted out of fantasy and blind faith and trust, of the wounded innocent that avoids what we don't want to see, avoids the harsher realities with life, with those harsher realities in life. Then we get to develop a plan that has a really good chance of success, a plan to nurture ourselves through or by developing our compassion for ourselves. Okay, because if we can't nurture ourselves, and nurturing includes compassion, it is you can't separate compassion from nurturing. The two go hand in hand. If we can't do that compassionately, then how in the world can we really compassionately nurture others, or even nurture them? We can't. We just can't do it. So keep the faith, okay? Keep the faith. This is all happening because we're ready for it, whether we know it or not, whether we admit it or not, whether we've realized it or not. The time has come, okay? Our quest arrives because it knows when we are ready for it. The energies this month are here because we have done the work. We are ready for it. If we haven't done quite as much as we would have liked, we'll find more difficulties than we would have liked. But hey, it's never too late. We are a spiral. We are on a spiral of personal development. If we don't get it all this time, we'll do the rest another time. Or perhaps we'll take 5 more times until we get it all. We have time. It's all perfect. Okay. This Cancer new moon is about faith. Okay. It's also about faith. Okay. Because faith is also part of compassion. Because when I have compassion for myself, I know that all will be well. So I don't have to judge myself. I know that things might be difficult, but it's all going as it's meant to go. And it will resolve itself perfectly. Okay, so faith is also an integral part of compassion. And faith is another strength of the innocent. Okay, blind faith and blind trust is an aspect of a wounded innocent, but faith in paradise, faith in our own ability to create or recreate paradise for ourselves again, and find a place where we feel truly at home with ourselves, and whatever the world and our experiences bring us, that's all the strengths of the innocent. So faith in our ability to trust ourselves, to nurture ourselves first, and to clearly understand that this isn't selfish, it isn't weak. The reality is that it's indispensable to our ability to develop stronger boundaries, to retrain our inner bully and transform them into an inner supporter, to toughen ourselves up a little, not in any hard way, but to bring out more of the warrior's willingness to fight for what we believe in. Remember, the warrior is just as powerful a preparation archetype as the others, even though I haven't spoken very much about this archetype today, because we need to have gone through, to have cleared the wounds, if you like, of all 4 of our preparation archetypes in order to become the adult we want to become, in order to have the life we want to have, in order to realize the vision we dream of creating as our unique way of changing some corner of the world. It's what we need in order to become a wise, self-realized adult. It's what we need in order to become the divine human that the Master talks of. Okay, all of that is the message of this full moon. So why not see it as a time of soul evolution and karmic healing, a time when we take responsibility for our own hurts and perhaps our, you might call it, hypersensitivities. It's a time when we realize that each of us is human and we may suffer in different ways, but our suffering is always caused by the same underlying pain of finding ourselves not good enough in some way. So don't get caught in the trap, because there is absolutely no need to get caught in that trap of believing that just because others are suffering, you need to suffer too. You need to empathize with them to the extent where you can feel their pain and you feel your own pain. It triggers your own pain too. Nothing could be further from the truth, okay? Healing yourself is what's called for now, not with harsh self-criticism or harsh judgments, but with nurturing and self-compassion that lets you hold your wounded inner child in your adult's arms and feel nothing but total unconditional love for yourself. It's what this astrological month is all around, is all about, and knowing that is powerful because it prepares you for what is to come, whether what is to come involves difficulties or what is to come involves rewards for having done the work before and seeing how far you've come, how far you've moved up that spiral of your own personal development and evolution. So I think really that's it for today. While I've been looking at my notes, I haven't been looking to see if anyone has managed to join me, and you haven't. I know that one of you said that you didn't think you could make it tonight, and obviously others couldn't either. So that's absolutely no problem, because you will get to listen to this replay. I've had great fun putting it together. My enormous thanks to Sherry. She is a brilliant astrologer. And I know that we have brilliant astrologers in this group too. But I find that there's a lovely interconnection between her work and mine, which makes it easy for me to be inspired by her at times when I particularly when I think, oh God, I need a special session and I've only got 4 hours to prepare and I haven't got the faintest idea what I'm going to do. So that's it for today. This has been the special session for June the 26th, 2017. It has been the special session entitled Just Because It's Familiar Doesn't Make It Right for Us. Familiarity can breed contempt. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to it. I hope it's given you some aha moments, and the Master and I will be back on Wednesday with a question and answer, our weekly question and answer session. But until then, enjoy your self-nurturing and your self-compassion.